his hands, who has numbered every grain of sand. Kings and nations tremble at his voice. All creation rises to rejoice. Who has given counsel to the Lord? Who can question any of his words? Who can teach the one who knows all things? Who can fathom all his wondrous deeds? Behold our God, seated on his throne. Come, let us adore him. Behold our King, nothing can compare. Come, let us adore him. Who has felt the nails upon his hand, bearing
This is Faith Talk 99.5. Get the latest headlines from a Christian worldview and listen to your favorite teachers anytime. It's all on our smartphone app, and it's free. Download yours today. This is Faith Talk 99.5. Revive Our Hearts is coming up in 30 minutes. But now it's Searching for the Truth, sponsored by West 65th Street Church of Christ in Little Rock.
Welcome to Searching for the Truth, a live and local call-in program. Call in with your comments or questions now. 855-568-1062. That's 855-568-1062. Your friends at the West 65th Street Church of Christ in Little Rock invite you to open your Bible and study with us as Don McLean answers Bible questions with Bible answers in a search for the truth. This program is presented as part of the efforts of the West 65th Street Church of Christ in Little Rock to search for all the truth presented in God's Word and teach that truth to men and women who, like us, are searching for the truth. Now, here's Don McLean.
And good afternoon. Welcome. It's a beautiful Tuesday afternoon. Hope that you are having a great day. Wherever you are this afternoon, if you're here in Little Rock, Arkansas, you might have noticed that the temperature feels a little bit better outside than what it has. It has been hot, humid, but today is nice. Hope that you're enjoying it. I'm looking forward to fall. I have with me today Sean Cavender, sitting down there, preaches up at Bald Knob, Arkansas. Sean, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you, Don?
Awesome.
Good.
I'm great. Turn you up a little bit more there. All right. And Bruce Reeves, who's sitting right here to my left. Bruce, how are you?
I'm doing great. Doing great.
Good. Speak up, and we're going to be changing courses just a little bit. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
The problem is if I turn you up too much, your mic picks up everything else, including me twice.
Oh.
So
okay.
yeah, that's all right.
All right.
Somebody last time you were on with me said I couldn't hardly hear Bruce.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Not that that's a big deal or anything. Just, you know.
Made a great program, didn't it?
It helped a lot, I tell you. It made it almost worth listening to anyway. So, anyway, we are going to change course a little bit this afternoon. We've been talking about Romans. We've been in Romans chapter 12 and talking about the practical effect of the gospel of Jesus Christ. The Apostle Paul, throughout the book of Romans, is arguing that the gospel is God's power to save. And you get into Romans chapter 12, then you get the practical application of the gospel into the Christian's life, into the believer's life. And how does that affect us? Well, we've been talking about that, but today we're going to change course just a little bit. We're going to talk about something. I had a friend who posted something on Facebook yesterday, and it had to do with, I'll just quote, it's a William Barclay quote. It says, the essential fact of Christianity is that God thought all men worth the sacrifice of his son. And there are people who reject that. They criticize that in the comments that followed. And, of course, I simply responded with John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. And then someone responded to that by saying, well, the manner of God's love is what's being emphasized in that passage. And certainly that's true, by the way. For God so loved the what?
World.
He so loved the world
Mm-hmm.
that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. So the scope of God's love covers the entire world. And there are some other passages that I mentioned in my comment. I think 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 4 was one, as well as 2 Peter chapter 3 and verse 9. 1 John chapter 2 and verses 1 and 2. In fact, and I've went ahead and had some dialogue with an individual on Facebook about those passages. And of course, one of the biggest differences, I think, of course, he says the biggest difference between us is that I do not believe that God does the saving, but he does. He believes that God does the saving. And that was one of the last statements that he made regarding that. So anyhow, Bruce, I have you with me today, and Sean, you guys, I'm going to let you do a lot of the talking. I've been coughing my head off all day long, as you both know. Right now, just a miracle. I feel much better.
That's another program.
Yeah, we need to talk some more, I think.
Yeah, well, guys, we need to study some more, don't we? Anyway, one of the biggest differences, I think, is, first of all, the concept of predestination and the omniscience of God, the perfect knowledge and foreknowledge of God, and how that plays out. One of the things that I have said many times on this program and in other forums, just because God knows a thing does not mean that he controls that thing. Would y'all agree with that?
I would.
Yeah.
I would. I think if we're dealing with classic Calvinism, though, I think much of their understanding, and there's always exceptions to this, but
Sure.
among the Calvinists that we've interacted with and what I understand to be orthodox classic Calvinism, is the notion that because God has foreordained whatever comes to pass,
Right.
that of course he's going to foreknow everything that comes to pass. And it's important to understand what we subscribe to. And I think we all need to understand what we subscribe to as far as what the Bible teaches. But having said that, if it's true that God has foreordained whatsoever shall come to pass, and that's what many of the confessions have to say that people subscribe to along this line, then that would have to include evil. And if you say, well, no, it doesn't, then I think your Calvinism is in serious jeopardy. So the point I'm making is that one of the consequences of this doctrine and this view of the sovereignty of God and the foreknowledge of God and that kind of thing comes back to, do you believe that? Do you believe that God has foreordained whatsoever shall come to pass, that he is the first cause of evil, that the devil and men are only secondary causes, and that there's no room for free will within the love of God? And I would actually argue that's not the case, that the love of God certainly does decree and permit us to have free will.
As does his sovereignty, by
As
the way.
does
God
his sovereignty.
in his sovereignty has, I believe that God has every right
Right.
to allow his creation to have free will. He is sovereign, and I'm going to let him make that choice.
Well, and let's go back to that. Often Calvinists will indicate to us that if we have free will, God can't be sovereign because of their view of sovereignty. But the fact is that God sovereignly decreed that we would have free will.
Right. We have the phone's ringing anyway. Let's see. It says unknown caller. You have a question or comment for us this afternoon? Hello there.
Hello?
Hello?
Hello, my name is Randy Seaver.
Yes, speak up, please. Let me see if I can turn you up a little bit.
Magic Jack. Don invited me to call in today with questions,
Sure.
and so I'm doing so.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Hello, Don.
Yes, we can hear you.
This is Randy Seaver.
Yes, sir.
You invited me to call in to your program this afternoon, and I'm calling by means of Magic Jack, and sometimes that is not completely reliable. So if you lose me, I apologize ahead of time.
Okay, well, I'm doing the best I can to get you turned up here so everybody can hear you.
Okay. One of you gentlemen just mentioned the idea of free will and indicated that Calvinists don't believe in free will. Could you tell me how you would define free will?
I can. I would argue for libertarian free will, which is I can choose A or B. And I think if you argue, I think most Calvinists I've talked to have argued for more of what they call compatibilism, which is you really can't choose A or B.
You can just choose within the scope of which God has foreordained you be. For example, a fellow once explained it to me this way: if God predetermined that I was going to murder myself, I was going to take my own life, I could choose the means by which I took my own life. If I was going to use a gun, I could choose whether to use my left hand or my right hand, but I'm still going to murder myself because God predetermined that I'd do that. That's the example that he used, and he's a professed Calvinist, written several books on the subject.
What is your definition of free will? That might be more helpful to me. I think there's a delay.
Yeah, there must be a delay. Are you there?
Oh, man.
I've got him turned up all the way here.
Okay, I am here.
There. Okay.
Okay.
I think that he's listening online.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes. What is your definition then of free will?
Yes, there is a delay. I'm just now hearing your question on magic.
That's okay.
Okay. Let me first of all tell you what my understanding. Let me first of all tell you what my understanding of libertarian free will is. My understanding is that libertarian free will means a person is able to choose other than he has chosen, and that choice is not determined by anything either outside of him or in his own personality, in his own character. Is that an accurate understanding?
I wouldn't agree with that definition.
No, I wouldn't.
I would say that the free will, if Bruce said choosing A or B, let's get more specific. I would say that libertarian free will would be, for example, the Jews to whom Moses spoke when he said, "Choose you this day." Okay, choose good or evil. I've set before you life or death. Choose life. I believe that we have the privilege that God has given to us to choose life or death. No. Yeah, there's a delay there. So, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay.
Is there a question there?
Did you hear my response?
No, let me say this, Don. I think you have misunderstood what Calvinists mean when we deny free will. Yes, I am here. Okay. I think you have misunderstood what Calvinists mean when we deny the idea of free will. We are not saying that there is anything broken about the will itself. The will is able to function in making free choices. We can choose either good or we can choose evil in terms of the ability of the will.
Okay, well, that's what I believe.
Okay.
But that, to me, that would be the acceptance of libertarian free will. That is when I understand libertarian free will. I can choose right or wrong, good or bad. I can choose God or I can choose not.
Do you, Randy, do you believe in the bondage of the will?
What we believe is that what is broken, we believe that what is broken is. Yes. Do you believe in the bondage of the will?
Are you there? The delay is so much that I mean I can hear ourselves.
Yeah, I ended my answer probably a minute ago, and I'm listening to it now, and so there is a huge delay here. Let me try to say again what I'm saying.
We're waiting.
You may have to let it go because your time is ticking.
Yeah. Or we're waiting.
Okay. This is a little frustrating.
Yeah.
Trying to wait for this all to get over so I can say it again. But what I'm saying is, what is broken is not the will. The will is not broken itself. The will functions and is able to choose whatever it wishes to choose. What is broken is the man who has the will.
Okay, the man who has the will is what is broken. Explain. Okay. So the man is broken. Bruce, what does he mean by the man is broken?
Well, we would have to ask him what he means by the man.
Okay.
Are we talking about spirit, soul,
Okay,
body?
let me continue then.
Okay.
One of these days it would be nice if we could have the opportunity to
Yes.
have a normal conversation.
Yes.
Maybe we can make it through this. What we are saying is that the will. Okay, what we are saying is that the will is not like a little man running around inside the man who is able to choose apart from what the man himself desires. The problem is that we do not desire to do the things that are pleasing to God because we are natural men, according to 1 Corinthians chapter 2 and verse 14. We are able to understand truth. We're able to feel the pangs of conscience. We are able to reason that God must exist from what God has created. We're able to understand all of that. The problem is we simply have no appetite for that. We don't, and the word that is used, as you know, perhaps in 1 Corinthians chapter 2 and verse 14, is a word that means to welcome. We cannot welcome the things of the Spirit of God. They are foolishness unto us because they are discerned by means of the Spirit. So that we choose what we choose freely. We are not determined by the decree of God to make choices as if we were puppets or robots. We act freely, but we do only that which we desire to do most at any given time. We choose according to our highest inclination. Okay? I might be trapped in a burning vehicle. The emergency people might show up and say, your car is on fire. The jaws of life aren't going to get here in time to get you out of the car, we can cut off your leg and let you live, or we can let you burn up in the car. Which do you choose? Neither of those choices is going to be a good choice.
Okay,
But
I believe I understand.
according to my highest information.
Right. Well, first of all, I would disagree with the interpretation of 1 Corinthians chapter 2. The Apostle Paul there is talking about inspiration, and he is talking about how the Jews who did not have a desire to please God, they wanted a sign. The Greeks, they sought after wisdom. They were seeking God purely through the naturalistic means. That does not mean that every man has that same desire. That's not what he's talking about, really. He's talking about the inspiration of the Scripture in 1 Corinthians chapter 2. But as far as the desire in I'll tell you what. Here's a good passage: 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, in verses 10 through 12. Those who do not receive a love for the truth, that they might be saved. All right. Well, who makes that choice whether I'm going to love the truth or not? Who makes that determination? If it's not me, then it must be God. And if it's God that makes that choice for me, why doesn't he make it for you? And if he doesn't make it for me or you, but he just does for the caller, then why does he not do that for everyone?
You do.
Okay. Well, if I make that
you
choice.
You make the choice as to whether you're going to love the truth or not.
Okay, well, that's good. We will agree there. And if I choose whether I'm going to love the truth, okay, that would be, would that be a bondage of myself as a human? I mean, it seemed like that would be kind of out of the box of the natural man, in contradiction to what was said earlier to me. Go ahead, guys. What would you say?
Well, let me address it.
No, Don, I don't think we are agreeing.
Do you want me to go ahead?
Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, let me mention a couple of things that maybe Randy can think about. First of all, when you say free will, I think I do understand what you're saying. Free to do.
Don?
This is kind of tough.
No, I don't think.
Go ahead, Bruce.
Okay, I would just say that when you argue about Calvinistic theology, the teaching is that God foreordained whatsoever shall come to pass, which includes the fact that he foreordained the fall. And as a result of that, we're incapable of making a good choice regarding salvation. I'm not talking about whether you are burned up in a car or whatever. And so, and when we talk about desire, that comes from the will. And then so we have to come back, can I make a choice regarding salvation? Or has God foreordained what I'm able to do in that way so that I don't really have free will? And when we talk about total depravity, is it not true that Calvinists argue that that's the depravity of body, soul, and spirit? And would that not include the will? And so I think we are back to this basic difference in saying we have free will, and really it's only free to do what God's already foreordained that I do, and he hasn't foreordained that I can make a true free will choice. This is why James White, who is a preeminent Calvinistic theologian and defender, has stopped saying free will, because he thinks it gives the wrong impression because of his belief of the bondage of the will. And so I think all of those things, if you clarify it, get us back to the real problem here.
Yeah, and it is a difference. Our caller is suggesting, that we can choose to love God. Well, if I can choose to love God, I can choose to trust him. I can choose to follow him. I can choose then salvation from him. That's my choice. If I could choose to love God, but if I am broken, I'm not going to.
Okay, could I try again?
Sure.
Well, we're about out of time. In fact, we have less than 1 minute left. The time difference has made this more difficult in trying to get the short amount of time in.
Don?
Yes.
Don? Don?
Yes, we're here.
Okay. Okay, listen, here, let me just say this real quickly then. When I answered your question, yes, it is you who decides. Okay. When I said it is you who decides that, it was in response to your question, who is it that makes the choice not to receive the love of the truth that you might be saved? I wasn't saying you have the ability to choose the love of the truth that you might be saved. You misunderstood. You asked a question. I was answering your question. If you choose not to receive the love of the truth that you might be saved, that's on you. That's not on God. God does not force anyone not to receive the love of the truth.
Do what, Bruce?
Well, but I have to say, if he's foreordained, whatever comes to pass, you are making a choice in the Calvinistic system, but you can't help but make that choice because you don't have the ability to make any other choice.
That's right.
And so I think we still end up with these consequences.
If I can choose not to love God, then I can choose to love God. If not, why not? I can only, it's like holding, again, going back to the gun, I can choose to hold it in my left hand and my right hand, but I can't choose to change anything that God has foreordained. And of course, Gene Cook Jr. told me one time, he says that God did not so much only know that a hair was going to fall out of your head. He predetermined, he decreed when that hair falls out of your head. And that's the extent to which classic Calvinism has God controlling everything. And that's what certainly the Bible doesn't teach that. We are out of time today. It flies too quickly. It always does. That's the way it is. But Lord willing, we'll be back tomorrow.
The Church of Christ that meets at 7115 West 65th Street in Little Rock has presented this program in the interest of searching for the truth. To request a past program, religious discussion, sermon CD, or religious literature, call 501-568-1062. That's 501-1062. You can email Don McLean by going to the church's website, w65stchurchofchrist.com. If you prefer to write to the West 65th Street Church of Christ, the address is P.O. Box 190062, Little Rock, Arkansas 72219. Please join us for Bible study this Sunday morning at 9 a.m. and worship at 10 a.m. Sunday evening worship begins at 5 p.m. We also have a Wednesday evening Bible study at 7 p.m. You're welcome at any and all of these services. Tell your friends to tune in each weekday at 3 p.m. for Searching for the Truth on Faith Talk 99.5. We hope our efforts will help you as you search for the truth.
You're listening to Faith Talk 99.5, your home for encouragement, inspiration,